Few bodies of writing have been examined, debated, translated, and reinterpreted as intensely as the texts collectively known as the Bible. Composed over more than a millennium, preserved through fragile manuscripts, and transmitted across cultures, empires, and languages, these writings sit at a crossroads of theology, history, literature, and archaeology. Their influence on law, art, ethics, and identity is indisputable. Yet alongside what scholars can confidently reconstruct, a set of enduring questions remains, often labeled biblical mysteries, not because they point to hidden codes or lost technologies, but because they arise at the limits of what evidence, language, and time can fully resolve. To approach these mysteries responsibly requires discipline. It means distinguishing between what the texts say, what historical and archaeological research supports, and where uncertainty remains. It also requires resisting the temptation to inflate gaps in knowledge into revelations, conspiracies, or suppressed truths. The most compelling biblical mysteries endure not because they undermine scholarship, but because they reveal how ancient texts interact with human meaning across centuries. The Bible is not a single book, nor was it written with a single purpose. It is a library. Its texts range from poetry and law to prophecy, narrative, genealogy, and letter writing. The Hebrew Bible emerged from the cultures of the ancient Near East, shaped by kingdoms that rose and fell long before classical Greece or Rome. The New Testament reflects the social and political realities of the Roman Empire, written by early followers of Jesus grappling with identity, persecution, and belief. One of the first mysteries arises not from content, but from authorship. Traditionally, many biblical books were attributed to named figures: Moses, David, Solomon, Isaiah, Paul. Modern scholarship paints a more complex picture. Linguistic analysis, historical context, and comparative literature indicate that many texts were composed, edited, and compiled over generations. The Pentateuch, for example, shows evidence of multiple sources woven together, reflecting different theological emphases and historical moments. This does not render the texts deceptive. It situates them within the literary practices of the ancient world, where authorship was communal, layered, and often anonymous. The mystery, then, is not who really wrote the Bible in the sense of exposure or scandal. It is how collective memory was preserved and shaped in textual form, and why certain voices were emphasized while others faded. Closely related is the question of canon. Why were some writings included and others excluded? Archaeological discoveries such as the Dead Sea Scrolls reveal that ancient Jewish communities preserved multiple versions of biblical texts alongside writings that never entered the Hebrew canon. Early Christian communities circulated gospels, letters, and apocalyptic works far beyond the 27 books that eventually formed the New Testament. The process of canonization was gradual, guided by usage, theological coherence, and communal authority rather than by a single decree. What remains unresolved is not whether texts were hidden or suppressed, but how communities negotiated meaning. Canon formation reflects priorities, which narratives unified belief, which teachings aligned with lived practice, and which writings sustained identity under pressure. The mystery lies in the social process itself, not in lost revelations waiting to be recovered. Another enduring question concerns historical verification. Some biblical figures and events are well attested by external sources. Kings such as Hezekiah and Nebuchadnezzar appear in inscriptions and annals beyond the Bible. Cities like Jerusalem, Nineveh, and Babylon are archaeologically documented. Other accounts, however, resist straightforward confirmation. The Exodus narrative, for instance, remains a subject of scholarly debate. While it is central to Israelite identity and theology, no direct archaeological evidence confirms a mass migration of enslaved people from Egypt matching the biblical description. This absence does not automatically negate the narrative. Ancient histories were often preserved through oral tradition long before they were written down, and not all events leave clear material traces. At the same time, scholarly consensus avoids treating symbolic or theological narratives as literal records, unless corroborated. The mystery here is how collective memory, mythic structure, and historical experience intersect in shaping foundational stories. Language itself introduces further complexity. The Bible reached modern readers through translation, and translation is interpretation. Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek contain idioms, wordplay, and conceptual frameworks that do not map neatly onto modern languages. Some terms carry ranges of meaning that shift with context. This has led to long-standing debates over interpretation, ethics, and doctrine. A well-known example involves prophetic language. Ancient Near Eastern prophecy often employed metaphor, hyperbole, and poetic imagery. Reading these texts as technical predictions rather than rhetorical expressions can distort their intent. The mystery is not hidden codes, but how meaning changes when texts move across linguistic and cultural boundaries. Perhaps the most discussed biblical mystery concerns Jesus of Nazareth. From a historical perspective, there is broad scholarly agreement that Jesus existed, that he was a Jewish teacher active in Roman Judea, and that he was executed by crucifixion. Beyond that foundation, the sources diverge. The Gospels were written decades after his death, shaped by the needs and beliefs of early communities. They agree on core elements but differ in chronology, emphasis, and detail. These differences are not anomalies. They reflect the nature of ancient biography, which prioritized meaning over exhaustive chronology. The mystery is not whether the accounts contradict each other in minor ways, but how early followers understood and articulated the significance of a figure whose impact rapidly exceeded his historical footprint. The resurrection narratives intensify this mystery. From a theological standpoint, they are central. From a historical standpoint, they resist conventional verification. Scholars can analyze the texts, their development, and their cultural context. What they cannot do is reduce the claim to archaeological proof or disproof. This boundary between historical method and faith claim is one of the most important and least sensational mysteries of the Bible. Another area often labeled mysterious involves prophecy and apocalyptic literature. Books such as Daniel and Revelation employ symbolic imagery drawn from earlier traditions. Beasts, numbers, cosmic upheavals, and visions of judgment were common tools for addressing persecution and political crisis. These texts were not written as cryptic forecasts of distant centuries, but as encoded commentary on contemporary events intelligible to their original audiences. The unresolved question is not whether these writings predict modern events, but why they continue to be reread as such. Apocalyptic language resonates during times of uncertainty because it frames suffering within a larger moral order. The mystery lies in the durability of that framework, not in deciphering hidden timelines. Archaeology continues to add texture rather than revelation. Excavations have clarified daily life in ancient Israel, confirmed the existence of certain administrative systems, and illuminated the social world of early Christianity. They have also challenged some traditional assumptions, such as the scale of early Israelite settlements or the development of monotheism. These findings do not dismantle the Bible. They complicate it, grounding its narratives in real landscapes inhabited by real people with evolving beliefs. What remains unknown is not a secret past, but the full interior lives of those communities, their doubts, debates, and private practices that never entered the textual record. Modern fascination with biblical mysteries often reflects a desire for certainty in an uncertain world. Claims of hidden codes, lost technologies, or suppressed histories promise clarity and control. They transform ambiguity into revelation. Yet they also flatten the Bible, reducing a complex anthology into a puzzle box. The more enduring mystery is subtler. Why do these texts continue to matter? Why do stories written for ancient communities still provoke ethical debate, inspire art, and shape identity? The answer lies not in what is hidden, but in what is continually reinterpreted. Biblical mysteries persist where evidence ends and meaning begins. They occupy the space where history meets theology, where language meets experience, where ancient voices encounter modern questions. Scholarship can narrow uncertainties, correct errors, and illuminate context. It cannot and does not claim to exhaust significance. What humanity genuinely knows is that the Bible emerged from identifiable historical processes, reflects specific cultural worlds, and can be studied with rigor. What remains unknown includes aspects of authorship, intention, and reception that no artifact can fully recover. These are not failures of knowledge. They are features of human history. The Bible's mysteries endure not because they hide forbidden truths, but because they were never meant to be static answers. They are part of an ongoing conversation, one that spans centuries, precisely because it resists closure.